Welcome everybody to the Rehab My Soul podcast. I am Lamiski Love. I am your host, and I am here with Rachel Isabella. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Lewinsky.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for
Love your
joining
hair.
me. Thank you.
It's
Thanks
different
for.
from the last time I talked to you.
Yes, I know it's summertime. Protective styles. Gotta do it. Um, Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, guys, she is a forgiveness coach. And how many of us freaking need forgiveness, right? Like, how many of us need forgiveness and need to forgive, right? We've got plenty of people. So, I am excited to have this chat with Rachel today. Rachel, introduce yourself. Tell me what you're all about. Tell the audience because I
So,
know.
so yeah. So I'm 44. I live in Argentina. I've been an expat for about 16 years, and I became a forgiveness coach. I recently realized that some people feel very triggered with that word, so I might be changing it. It depends on where they are in their healing process, but I work with young women who have father issues. Um, I used to say daddy issues, but people really don't like that word. But the truth is, if you have them, you know it. Um, I work with women who have had fathers that were either absent, indifferent, narcissistic, unavailable, emotionally unaware, physically not there, all that stuff. And I help them move through that and get to the other side. Because a lot of women with father issues are really stuck. They're really stuck in a place of pain and unworthiness, and they're not very aware that everything they're attracting, their relationships and their goals and their dreams and all that, it's not from a place of health.
Wow. So, where do you start? Like, because there's so many different scenarios where a father could not perform, right? He could be there, and that hurts a different type of hurt than just not being there at all. So how do you start that process? Because it's a big process.
Yeah, you start the process accepting what was. So you accept what was, you learn that it had nothing to do with you. That's where we start, actually. A person needs to understand that it doesn't matter, it really didn't matter how cute you were or how well behaved you were or what grades you got in school. There was absolutely nothing that you could have done for your father to love you better, love you more. You know, um, the whatever he did wrong was on him. And we can go back into, what he grew up with and all that stuff. But when it comes to you and your dad, it had nothing to do with you. It really wasn't you. It was him. And it would have been the same with, another kid or whatever, probably. So we start there. We start with acceptance. We start with what else? Letting go of the idea that it could have been any better, any different. And then you grieve because your feelings need to be acknowledged. Your grief needs to be acknowledged. And you don't want to stay stuck there. We work through anger, and then we work on you. We work on self love. We work on boundaries, which a lot of fatherless daughters don't have them very well. So the emphasis is put on the child, on the girl that grew up without her dad, because there's this mindset shift that has to happen. That I see a lot of women where their thinking is, "What can I do to make him love me?" Rather than just turning back to you and your mirror and saying, "What can I do to love me?" You know, because your love for yourself is more important than your father's love for you. It always was. We just didn't know it. We didn't have the cognitive ability to understand that our love was more important. We just needed our dad to love us, our mom to love us, the people who raise us to love us. And when they don't, it's, well, I mean, it must be my fault. And there isn't the cognitive ability to say, yeah, no, it's obviously because he's dealing with some stuff and he doesn't know how. So that's the point. That's where we have to get back to putting him aside and putting the attention on the woman suffering.
Whew, I got so much swirling in my heart space right now.
Yeah.
So I am, in a way, one of these girls. I didn't realize women. I didn't realize that I could still feel that sense of emptiness even if he was still physically there. because I
Mm-hmm.
was like,
Totally.
I got a two parent home. Like I'm different, you know. It's just, you know, I should be further along. I should be more confident, right? You know what I'm saying? Because he's here.
Yeah, no,
So
not at all. Not at all. The idea of a father, I didn't know that either. I didn't know to really like call myself fatherless or to see that my daddy issues had to do, or the way it showed up in my life. I didn't really know it had to do with him because he was present my whole life. He was present until I was 21, and but he didn't see me. He didn't validate me. He didn't show me love. He should not have been there. You know,
mm,
he should have left the family years before. He checked out. I think he was very good with my sister and I when we were little girls because that was easy. And then we became women who think for themselves, and we're both progressive and feminists, and you know all that he is not because he's actually very old-fashioned and conservative. And rather than finding a way to reach us, to learn with us, to grow with us, he just shut down. Um, and so I didn't know. I'm not going to say it's worse or not because people love to kind of consider,
yeah,
kind of compare their
compare.
pain. But to be in a home with a man who doesn't see you, who walks right by you when you cry because he can't deal with a woman crying and lets your mother handle it, it's very painful to not be
Yeah,
seen. And and so then I married the first man that gave me attention. I didn't know. I
right.
just I needed that love.
Yep. Yeah, it can happen in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
The person being there, it's different, you know. It's not a comparison like you said. I know people love to compare. Like I was in a conversation and people were like, "Well, at least your dad's still alive. My dad's gone." And I'm like, "Okay, but like what does that have to do with like my pain, you know?" So I
Yeah.
really do dislike. I know what you mean, and I really dislike when people want to compare pain and scenarios that have nothing to do with each other. Um Tell me about how women that have experienced some form of fatherlessness are bad with boundaries. Asking for a friend.
For you. Right. Um, so I had this with, I mean, just anecdotally, I had this with my ex, where because I'm an open person, he would ask me questions and I would answer them. And we were like, well, we should tell each other everything. And I didn't see a problem with that because I'm pretty much an open book. I don't usually lie. I'm really upfront and frank. And I thought I had nothing to hide. You could look through my phone. You could look, like, you know, I'm not doing anything wrong. But I realized that it seemed that what that did was there was no ending of me and beginning of him. And then it would become a problem when I would tell him that I had done something completely innocent and he would take it the wrong way. But boundaries keep us safe. And a lot of people feel that boundaries have to do with saying no, which it does. But there's really nothing, boundaries are not about being mean. They're about loving yourself well. The same way you have physical boundaries where you know exactly how close you want a person to get to you, you need to have emotional boundaries. So when someone asks you to do something for them and you really don't have the time, you need to learn how to say, I really can't, you know. Um, a lot of people start putting up boundaries with the excuse, I'd love to, but I have this, that, and the other. They give you 5 reasons why when you really don't need reasons. You just have to be able to say no. But a woman who didn't have a father to teach her boundaries um, loses herself in people, can lose herself very easily in her romantic relationships, even her friend relationships, because she is probably very needy for love and feels unworthy. And so when love is given, they just want all of it. They don't they don't really feel the need to separate from the other person. They also have a hard time saying no, which leaves you exhausted, which leaves you feeling resentful. And so boundaries are something that if you can change, it's all about mindset. If you can change the mindset that boundaries have to do with being mean and change it to boundaries have to do with self-love, then it's much easier to work on them because most women have an idea of boundaries that is untrue.
Right. Yeah, Definitely can relate to that. I have had to work very hard on having stronger boundaries and being that good wholesome person that can just, I'm an open book cuz I'm not hiding anything, that gets you wrapped up into people sometimes, and it just can
Hmm.
happen so quickly and just so effortlessly that you really really have to pay attention, and you have to, like you said, the mindset aspect of it. For me, I feel like people should sit at some point before they start that dating profile, before they start meeting and having a, wanting the relationships and things, and really figure out like who they really are,
Hmm.
and what those limits and boundaries can or should be. And most times we have no idea because we're trying to write from a book with no words because we haven't been there yet.
Right.
So I think the boundary part is super important because boundaries aren't created in a vacuum. They're created with another person who, if you're not ready, is gonna push those freaking boundaries. And
Well, it
it's
isn't
not.
even.
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It isn't even just about that. You could have bad boundaries with your boss, where they go over the line. They tell you that they want you to stay late and not pay you or whatever. And a lot of women are like, okay, well, sure. And they don't. They are not taught. Women are not taught how to say no. You can say it nicely. You can say, no, I work from this hour to this hour, and then I go home. And you're being inappropriate or whatever. It isn't just with a romantic partner. It can be with anybody. It can be
For
with
sure.
anybody where you feel in a way inferior, or like not inferior, but there's a hierarchy. That's why I mentioned a boss.
Yeah. Authority.
Um, yeah, and what you said about sitting with yourself and healing before the romantic relationship, before the children, that's why I'm trying to get really work with younger women, with like the older Gen Zs and the younger millennials, because I've noticed that unfortunately, women my age, because I'm 44, women my age and older who have been dealing with their daddy issues for years, um, almost need to go through therapy rather than coaching, because those feelings of unworthiness and all that stuff has bled into their marriages and their
Everything.
children, and they've had this pain for years. And so I thought, if I can get to someone really young, before they get married, before they start with their dreams and their goals and stuff like that, and just really take care of this really quickly, just change your mindset about who your dad is and what he should have given you and whatever, then the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw this thing on Instagram the other day, I think, and it said, heal yourself before you have children so your children won't have to heal themselves from having you as a mother, something like that.
I think I read something like that the other
Did you
day
read
too.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
It's
was going
it's
around.
yeah, that's real. That is
It's
so real.
powerful. It makes you think.
But
Hmm.
it's so abstract to tell someone to sit and heal. Like
Hmm.
when you're a younger version of, like, I'm 37 now, so, and I'm an old soul, so I don't, I've dealt with and healed through stuff, so it's hard for me to
Yeah.
even think back sometimes to my early 20s or mid 20s or whatever age you're going for, and realize at that point that that is what I needed. Now, I think I found a book on boundaries back in like 2012 when I was in a crappy relationship, and
Hmm.
it wasn't the first guy that showed me attention, but it was the first guy that showed me a level of consistency.
Hmm.
And but there was a bunch of whole other, I mean, it was a 20 something relationship. We can't expect much of them, right? But it's hard to even know that that's what I needed at the time if I hadn't gone through some of these things. But I can totally get what you're saying about, it's like in the crock pot, right? You've been in that crock pot so long, you're that frog in that hot pot of water where the
And you don't
temperature
realize.
has been rising,
Right.
and you don't
Right.
even realize that all the decisions you have made for your life are people
Right.
pleasing in some way, and you're
Hmm.
in this quagmire of life and decisions and circumstances and situations, and now you're telling me that there's something better. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. The man that I chose to marry at 24 has nothing to do with what I would choose now at 44 at
right,
all. And
exactly.
it changed in 10 years because I left him at 34. The reason why I left, which is interesting, because I don't really know what makes women leave. I Sometimes people get angry with me because I was on this Facebook group. I don't know if I told you this the first time that we spoke. And it was just women complaining. And this woman said, and I have a problem with that. I have a problem with you not doing something about it. So these women in this Facebook group were saying, my husband was rude to me or spoke badly to me for 25 years. And my comment, a lot of people would comment things like, "Oh, you don't deserve him. He doesn't deserve you," or something like that. And my question would be, did you stay for 25 years?
Right. You told
And
me that.
then I
Yep.
would, right, I told you that. And then I would get all this, but I'm just asking you to look at how you were responsible in whatever. Because I was responsible. I stayed 10 years. I stayed in my marriage that was toxic and abusive until I had nothing left to give,
Right.
until I left because I loved my son, not because I loved myself.
Right.
So, and I mean, I left because I got gallstones, and because
Mm.
you do this too, you do Reiki. And because I'm an energy healer, I said, well, I manifested this. How did this happen? And when I looked at gallstones, um,
A
it said
spiritual meaning.
that has to do with, yeah, it has to do with bitterness and hard thoughts about the past. And I said, okay, I need to leave this man. I need to forgive my husband and forgive my ex and forgive myself. And yeah, my gallstones was the start of my understanding that I needed to leave, that I was in a bad spot.
Right.
But a lot of women who aren't into energy healing, Lemiski, how do they leave? What is the moment that they realize this is hurting my body, this is hurting my soul? I think that's why people stay 25 years and complain
Right.
about it and don't realize, but you participated in this,
Right.
you know?
Well, right. So there's something that I don't know if the wisdom dropped it in or I learned it a long time ago, and it's not an offensive statement, but it's the truth, right? We
Mm-hmm.
are a party to our pain. And a
Absolutely.
lot of people don't like hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
But we are responsible for our experience here. And that experience includes a man, includes these relationships, includes these jobs we keep, includes these friendships that we keep, that we stick to because we are getting something out of it. So if I were to tell someone to sit and heal, it would be to sit and really start journaling about each of the relationships that you feel some tension in,
Yeah,
because that's where it starts. That you got to move that sand away just enough to start seeing it. And then from there you can do something about it. But I can't do that for someone else, and someone else can't do that for me. So it is an honest statement that we are a party to our pain. We are responsible. And maybe your pain lasted 25 years because you needed 25 years of pain to get your lesson.
right.
Maybe you didn't leave because you felt that that's what your life was supposed to be. Maybe you leave as soon as you see some bullshit pop off. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yeah,
Because you've grown in that area. So, yeah, for sure. I mean, we definitely need to catch some younger women so they don't have to go through the years and years of people pleasing and
yeah.
trashy relationships that
I
we've
really want to
gone
do that.
through. But
Yeah,
here's the thing, too, though. We first got to get these people okay with being single. And that right there, I think, is one of the bigger issues, is that codependency that we develop all these years from this people pleasing and the symbiotic relationships that we create, is
yeah,
realizing that your worth and your value is not in your relationship status. And I know I always default to relationships because that clearly has been my biggest struggle, but it happens at work. I've had instances at work where I've had to display some extreme self love and make people that kind of wrote my check not like me. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I like me. I got me. And so it's such a much bigger thing. I can't think of the word that I want to use. But it's such a much bigger plate of issues that go into all of this. And you're telling me that this started with my daddy? Like
mm-hmm.
it really did. It really
Yeah,
did. It really did. Yeah.
yeah. I would tell so many women because, yeah, like you said, it's the healing is very individual. It depends how old you are, how much you put up with all these years, who you need to heal with, and stuff like that. And sitting down and, like you said, journaling. I like to have people write down their 10 saddest memories and find out like what happened as a result of this. I had a sad memory from when I was 6 years old. What did that make me feel about myself?
Yeah.
And then at 12 at school, something happened. I was humiliated. And that told me that I was unworthy or easy to laugh at or whatever. Um, and a lot of my memories had to do with my dad, like being cold or laughing at me, not being there and stuff like that. And then if you do your like 10 happiest memories, that also tells you a lot about yourself, who you love, who has been there for you, what it is that makes you, joyful and all that stuff. But the work is individual and it's hard. And a lot of people say, they don't want to do the work. And my mom has a friend from like many years, and her work is going 2 or 3 times a week to a psychologist and taking a lot of medication. And I'll talk to her about like healing her past, and she just thinks it's crazy talk. She really doesn't. I'm like, okay, so her work in healing herself is that her money is going to her psychologist and medication. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but in 30 years of psychologist, she has not gotten better. And
Mm.
then some people say, well, I'm gonna go through the pain of reliving memories, of writing down these things, of putting up boundaries with people that I'm scared to put up boundaries with, and that is their work. And then they come out the other side. So it's true that it's you wouldn't run a marathon without training, without doing the work. It's just there's really no other way around it. It's just through it.
Yeah. Yeah, the work is very different for everyone. Everyone's circumstances are so different. Everyone's perception of the world and what they think they needed and what they needed and all that stuff is so different. So what made you get into this work?
Well, maybe again, it's work. I think the fact that I did it, that I healed, and that I felt so much better, and then I'd see a lot of women online um, talking about their daddy issues and their father wounds and stuff like that. And I thought, why don't I have this anymore? Why doesn't this hurt me anymore? And I thought back, I realized, oh, I did it. I healed it. And I think a lot of women eventually get there. I mean, I've spoken to women in their 60s who have not gotten there, unfortunately. But I think if you work with a coach, you can speed up the process because there's things that you're not considering that I can maybe change your mind about. Yeah, I got into it because I thought, wow, I realized that I was good when I realized that what I felt from my dad was indifference instead of sadness and pain and heaviness. I was like, oh, whatever. I don't wish him anything bad. I hope he's well. I hope he's fine. I hope he doesn't get sick with anything. I hope he's happy in his marriage. Um, but there's a level of indifference that is that feels very, very peaceful. And when you talk to fatherless daughters who have not healed, there's a huge range of emotion, anger and resentment and humiliation and grief. And there's a myriad. And I thought, I don't feel this anymore. Why don't I feel this anymore? And I realized, oh, you did it. You're done. So let's see if we can help other people.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it.
Wow.
And the fact that I realized that part of the energy work, part of like the best thing you can do for your energy to be good, for your chakras to be good, is to forgive. That's how I got into it. Because I made the connection about the forgiving my dad and wanting to keep my body as healthy as possible.
Right. Yeah. Man, we could talk for an hour on just how all of these emotions affect the body and then it affects so many other things, but I don't think we have time for that. But man, so your own journey, your own process that you've walked yourself through so gracefully, you've now turned around to start helping other people. So, in what
Mhm.
capacity do you help other people? What are your offerings right now?
I offer one-on-one coaching, and we go through the things I had mentioned before, like the anger and the acceptance and letting go and grief and self-love and boundaries and all that. And did you want me to give my website or something?
Sure, sure.
Oh, okay. So I'm at healsinglove.com, altogether, Heal Sing Love. And yeah, my coaching program is there. And what else? Hmm. I didn't sell that very well. I need to get better at selling myself. Yeah, I think if you're young and if you're between probably the ages of 18 and 30 and you're dealing with this, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to see. more women just come to the realization that they are giving their father an importance that is not deserved and that it has not been earned, and realize that that attention needs to be put back on themselves. I'd love to see that.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, you guys heard her. She said 18 to 30. Hit her up. She wants to work with you. She wants
30,
to,
33, that's fine.
yeah,
I'm just trying to get them as young as, yeah, like I
for sure.
said, I think that the sooner you can deal with this, you can heal this. Oh, you can go on and do amazing things in life.
Yes, all the amazing things that you were intended to do, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for joining me. I really appreciate your time and the work that you're doing to heal hearts, because this is something that is so prevalent,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not discussed as much as
Yeah,
openly unless you're in certain circles or working with a coach or working with a therapist. So, wow. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so
I was
much.
gonna say thank you
I
so
know.
much for having me.
I think that's what I was telepathically catching.
Yeah,
But anyway, sorry. Thanks so much for being here, and I'm so excited to share your information with my audience. So if they are in need of services or just a conversation or a call with you, that they can reach out to you.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Lemiski. I was so happy to be here.
You are so welcome. Thank you.